I'm going to quote more now from this book, which is available on Amazon. I would like to celebrate the amazing work of John Kerry that very humbly and humanly handled the Iran deal, which elated me and the whole of the world. I must take part of the blame for the retarded child, quoting here, that we elected for our next president that ended up being brainless. But I am man enough to say that I misjudged and made a terrible mistake. And Iran, I apologize. And here's where he says what we said in the intro. You are free to assassinate Trump as well as me for that error in judgment and the dismantling of the deal. No one here in the U.S. seems to have the balls to put natural selection to work or even unnatural selection. There is an Iranian death threat on your dad. They've been investigated, and there was a warning that the Secret Service was aware of before Butler, though the complaints by the locals was that that was not shared with them. Do you have any concerns about whether this guy might have some ties to Iran or some foreign actor overseas?
Yes. Yes. I mean, listen, we've had the Iranian death threat on all of us, frankly, for a very long time. It's something that we've been very cognizant of for many years, frankly. I mean, from the time that he was in office and he was taking out guys like Soleimani and al-Baghdadi and, so many of their nuclear scientists and doing so many other things. I mean, it's interesting that the guy, the would-be shooter yesterday, was complimenting a country that literally chants death to America. I mean, in Tehran, they chant death to America on their streets, yet he's complimenting how great their nation is. It's also kind of ironic that, we had total peace in the Middle East under my father, right? Iran was broke. We were exporting oil from the U.S., meaning we didn't need their oil. My father put massive embargoes on them. Effectively, anybody who buys Iranian oil, we're not going to buy a single product. I mean, the United States of America will not buy a single product from. So you want to trade oil with them? Congratulations. You're effectively cut off from every market around the world. Iran was broke. There were no missiles flying. They weren't attacking our greatest ally in the Middle East, right, which is obviously Israel. There was total peace, no problems from the Taliban, no problems from ISIS. Taliban, right? For the last 18 months, we didn't lose a single service member over in Afghanistan. My father sent the head of the Taliban literally a picture of his home. And, hey, guess what? Don't mess with the United States. You know what's going to happen if you do. Right? There was peace in the Middle East. You had the Abraham Accords. You had the moving of the embassy, as everybody knows very well. You had the Golan Heights. You had so many great milestones in the Middle East. And, it's amazing that the shooter, it's the same guy that's laughing in front of a courthouse right now as he's, facing probably the rest of his life in jail for doing what he, inevitably wanted to do. But, it's amazing that this person is a guy who's, complimenting a country that, again, wants our total demise, wants to create nuclear weapons to use against the West, to extinguish our religion, our way of life, our families, and everything that red, white, and blue stands for. And so, it's very par for the course for the guy that I see in that picture who looks like a total maniac.
Mm-hmm. There is a retired FBI assistant director. He was in office from 2004 to 2006. His name is Chris Swecker. Was 24 years with the FBI. Helped actually capture Eric Rudolph after the Olympic Park bombing, the actual guy who did it. And in a Newsweek interview, he said the biggest question to answer here is, how did the would-be assassin know to be at that location at that time? And then he goes on to say, Eric, there are only three possible answers. He guessed and got very lucky. He conducted surveillance on Trump and followed him to the golf course, or he had inside information about Trump's schedule. Your thoughts on those three possibilities?
I agree with him 100%. And at what world do we think it's a good idea for somebody with a pistol to be fighting a guy with a rifle, right? Those odds, this is never good. Never good. Pistols versus rifles don't work out well, in the modern day. We better get a real perimeter around the president, and we better do so quickly. Megyn, they're trying to kill him, right? They're trying to kill him. I said it, and it was very controversial when I did, and I'm not a tinfoil hat wearing guy. I'm a very pragmatic guy. I've just seen what they tried to do to my family for the last, 10 years now of being us, of us, being in this game. I've seen every single trick. They laughed at us first. Then they tried to take him down. Then they tried to impeach him. Then they went after him. They tried to do everything. And the only thing that was left for them to do was to literally kill him. And a couple months before Butler, I literally said, it would not surprise me at all. These people will stop at absolutely nothing. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And then you take that with real lapses in security. And I'm not talking about even yesterday. I think yesterday, in many ways, was a success. They got the guy before he could do something bad. But we better work on this perimeter because this is getting far too close. Butler was a disaster. And even when Blumenthal, it was probably the biggest anti-Trumper in the world, right? When he comes out and says that there's a lot there to unpack, we better start getting serious because, Megyn, we'd look like a third world country. We probably already do, to tell you the truth, but we'd look like a third world country if if the leading candidate, former president of the United States and leading candidate, likely the 47th president of the United States, gets executed in Palm Beach, Florida. We'd be the laughing stock of the entire world. Congratulations. We're no longer the superpower of the world because people would be laughing at us. Not to mention what would probably be the ramifications that came out of something like that. Civil wars in countries have started for less than things like that. I couldn't even fathom what that would mean for our nation, what that would mean for the American dream, what that would mean for our prosperity, the respect or lack thereof. You can't spend $3 billion on an agency to protect effectively two people, really protect two people, and have gaps. And there were gaps in Butler. There's no question about it. And honestly,
same
it just
gap.
feels to me
same gap, right? Perimeter in Butler, perimeter down here. As somebody who knows this golf course, you tell me, is it possible, do you think, for somebody to have just followed your dad, just sort of stumbled upon his schedule, like looked for him and then followed him to the golf course?
Yeah, it's awfully easy to see a big motorcade pulling in there, right? But clearly it was premeditated. There's no question about that. I mean, the guy effectively went into a bunch of Eureka Palms, posted along.
How would he know your dad would be there on this particular Sunday, right? Your dad's apparently it wasn't broadcast. So I mean, do you have any? Because there are a lot of people thinking this had to be an inside job, and I know we have to entertain that. We have to look down that lane. But is it plausible that he just? Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody had better entertain it. Everybody had better entertain everything. Yeah, right. I never thought I'd say this again. I'm not that tinfoil hat guy. I'm actually a very sane human being, and I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there that are absolutely insane. You better believe after twice in 5 weeks, you better start entertaining all of those scenarios because something is very, very wrong, and it could have been very, very different. The guy literally brought a rifle across. Megyn, if you look at that, right, you've got a massive street that's wide open. You've got probably 20 yards of beautiful, perfectly manicured grass. Then you get to a row of beautiful palm trees, right? Royal palm trees. And you have about another 20 yards of grass. And then you've got a big hedge line. Inside the hedge line, you have a chain link fence right on the other side of that. He literally got across all of that holding a long gun. And no one saw this, right? There weren't eyes on the street. It's not like he's creeping through a bunch of woods to try and get in a concealed spot in total camouflage. I mean, he literally went across a massive highway in the middle of the day with a long gun, something that you can't just throw in a backpack, right? And slither his way into the bushes, adjacent to a golf hole that my father happened to be on at that time. Yeah, you better entertain those possibilities because that's seriously bad. And the guy from looking at him looks like a total nut job. Obviously, he's crazy. You see that picture, but what happens if he wasn't? What happens if that guy was well camoed? What happens if that agent just didn't happen to be there at the right time? What happens if that guy killed that agent and then used a scope rifle to take somebody out from not a far distance? We better really start locking down this perimeter because something is awfully wrong. And as I said 3 times on this interview now, they are trying to get him.
Do you feel comfortable
6 months ago, I believed in my heart that they would stop at nothing. But now the world knows they are trying to get him.
Do you feel comfortable having the FBI conduct this investigation? Ron DeSantis is saying he will conduct an investigation of his own down in Florida just to make sure. There are a lot of people who don't trust the FBI. A lot of people at this point have questions about the Secret Service. Who would you like to see investigate this?
Yeah. It pains me to answer this question because honestly, I'm the biggest law enforcement guy. My best friends in the world are all law enforcement. It's literally Megyn, my closest friends in the world. I've told you stories about them, including yesterday, but they are some of my closest friends in the world. But then I see the weaponization of government. I was the guy that got the call from the FBI that, about the servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating with the Kremlin, right? We disproved that in 12 hours, right? First of all, we didn't have servers in a basement because guess what? Basements flood, right? You don't put servers in basements. It's stupid. Second of all, we're largely cloud computing. So, the notion of really having servers that are communicating with the Kremlin it's insane. We had disproved that, yet that hung over the first 3 years of my father's presidency, right? They could have shut that down second one, day one, and they let that drag and they let that linger. It put 2 superpowers against each other, if you think about it, right? The 2 superpowers with the most nuclear weapons on Earth, Russia and America, for a 3-year period of time, almost couldn't have communications because of the sham hoax that was happening. When an agency knew that it was nonsense, that it was garbage, that there was nothing there. They let it hang over my father. And so do I have full trust in the FBI? No, I don't. I don't. I've seen more leaks through that agency. I've seen more things about us get leaked that were just untrue. I don't, unfortunately, I don't have faith. And it's so sad because I have a bunch of friends who are FBI, who are agents, like, the actual gun carriers in that organization. And these are the most incredible people you've ever seen. I mean, a couple of my closest friends in the world are in that agency, and they also shake their heads saying, what the hell is going on? I mean, it's really amazing how, one floor in one office building and in Washington, D.C. can corrupt an entire agency. And you see that with the Secret Service as well sometimes. I mean, some of the finest people you have ever met in your life, people who, regardless of whether we win on November 5th, will be some of my closest lifelong friends, were people who, frankly, were assigned to Laura and I for a 4-year period of time or 3-year period of time, depending on when their ship came in. These are some of the greatest people. They love this country. They love America. They would do anything. And they would take a bullet for either my father. They would take a bullet for Biden. They would take a bullet for Harris. They would take a bullet for anybody because that's their job, and they're brave as hell and they're good at what they do. But there's also a breakdown at the very top. And make no mistake, some of these agencies are weaponized. I mean, the 8th floor of the Secret Service in Washington, D.C. allowed agents during my father's presidency to go find the 4473, the firearm forms from Hunter Biden. They allowed agents to go over to the firearms store where he had his revolver, and they wanted to collect those forms. I wonder what they were doing. This was while my father was president. Do you think while Joe Biden was president, if Laura Trump threw a revolver in a trash can outside of the supermarket, do you think Secret Service agents would be going over there and trying to fish it out of a dumpster, or going over to the gun store to try and collect the paperwork? Of course they weren't, Megyn. There's corruption in the government. There's massive corruption in the government. That corruption only goes one way.
Imagine waking up one day to find out your home no longer belongs to you, that someone somewhere has stolen your property right out from under you. It sounds unthinkable, but it is a sad reality for some American homeowners and a risk for anyone that owns property. House stealing, that's what the FBI calls it. And it's a form of real estate fraud where scammers leverage loopholes in the system to fraudulently transfer your home's title into their name, then take out loans against your property or even sell it behind your back. And by the time you find this out, the scammer's long gone, leaving you, the legitimate homeowner, to clean up the mess. But right now, triple lock protection is available through HomeTitleLock.com, offering 24/7 title monitoring, alerts, and restoration services. You can sign up today at HomeTitleLock.com and use the promo code Megyn for 30 days of protection for free and a comprehensive title scan to make sure that you're not already a victim of this kind of thing. It's promo code Megyn and HomeTitleLock.com, or just by using the link below. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.